Good morning viewers. Today we are going to discuss about feasibility report. What is feasibility report? Where it is required? So for final year students, you are leaving within a short period, that is 2 or 3 months. What is the next thing that you will do? Probably you may go for a particular industry for a job, or you may want to go for putting your own industry. Now in that case, how would you select your industry? On what basis? So for example, if we go to a market for purchasing particular product, we will see it, what quality it is, what quantity it is, like that. But here, how you can see to install an industry, to put an industry, to start an industry? In that case, this feasibility report is important. One more thing, when you want to start your own industry, you have to go to the banks for loans. In case of loan also, the bank managers or the concerned people of a bank will ask you, what is your project report? So there also this feasibility report is required. By seeing this feasibility report, they are able to sanction the loan. So that means this feasibility report gives us total report of our industry, its feasibility, whether it is in profit or not, what are the requirements, whether they are available, everything they will see. According to that, they will give us the loans. So in that way also this feasibility report is also necessary. Now first let us see what is a feasibility report. Now feasibility report is a systematic market analysis to find out possibility and practicability of starting a project. So here systematic study of practicability and possibility. Say for example, I will take particular product, say a pen, manufacturing of a pen. So what is the possibility? What is the practicability? So pen can be manufactured as well as used by many number of persons. But what is the another thing is, there may be number of competitors. So we have to see those things and whether they are feasible or not. So that is what we have to see here. So it is a systematic study. Next is what it gives us. It analyzes availability of raw materials. So what are the raw materials, whether they are available near to the plant or not, skills and expenditure, skills and expertise. So what are the skills required, what is the expertise required? Say for example, I want to manufacture a particular plastic ropes. In that case, the skilled labor must be available only in Rajasthan, but not in AP. In that case, I have to bring from them. So that also to be seen here. So that is the skill and expertise. Next is a capital market. So what are the requirements, market requirements? What is the, how much amount of capital is required, whether it is to be own or borrowings, etc. That we have to see. Next is the purpose. What is the purpose of the feasibility study? It is most suitable scale of operation. That means what is the suitable scale of operation? For example, we can manufacture a particular item in different ways. So which operation can be suitable under particular conditions? Say for example, steel manufacturing. It can be manufactured either converter in Bessemer converter or electrical furnace. So which is good? How to select it? In that way it can be helpful. Next is the size of the unit. What is the size? Whether it is small scale or large scale or medium scale, and what is the capacity of it per day or per month, like that, or if in case if it is a components, how many components that we have to manufacture in a day or in a month or in a year, right? Next, let us see what is this feasibility report contains. It is nothing but estimates of a project cost. What is the project cost? Means of financing. So how to finance? How much amount should be given to the fixed capital? How much should be given to the working capital? And how much amount is own capital and how much to be borrowed? Next is sales revenues. How much sales we will get in a year or in a month? That will. Next is production cost. So what is the production cost? How much production cost is going to be there in a month? And according to that, what is the revenues? The difference we can get the profit. So in studying that it will be helpful. Next is financial and social profitability. So financial profitability, how much percentage of profit it is there. Next is it aids in decision making. So for an industry, for a owner or for an entrepreneur, what is that he has to take, whether it is feasible or not, whether it is viable or not, that can be seen. Now let us see one more thing. So what it gives us, it may be noted that any project must be technically feasible, economically viable, socially acceptable. Say for example, technically feasible, all this plant location, nearness to raw materials, electricity supply, skilled labor available, etc. will come under this technical feasibility. Next is economically viable. So how far it is profitable, at what production it is like that it can be found. Next is socially acceptable. For example, let me take any item, it must be acceptable. For example, I want to manufacture particular explosives. In that case, if I put that anywhere, it is not acceptable. So like that we have to see that product is going to be socially acceptable. So these are the things which gives us a feasibility report. Now before going to make this report, we have to make certain prerequisites. That is, before that we have to give certain points like market survey, demand survey, etc. So let us now see that what are those things. Now Mr. Srinivas will explain about the prerequisites of the feasibility report.
Morning viewers. One of the prime requirements for the preparation of feasibility report is to conduct market and demand survey. So what is this market and demand survey? First of all, we should understand what is a market. It has already been explained to you what is a market in the previous sessions. Now we concentrate on the demand in demand survey. So as you see here, demand, a want is a perceived need or an effective desire. A perceived means a known, a proposed need. A want is a need or an effective desire by the customer. When the effective desire is coupled with purchasing power, it is called a demand. So I am having a need and I want to procure an item which can satisfy my need. So how can I procure it? How can I obtain it from the market? Unless I have money, I cannot procure it. So I should have some means to procure the item I need. So that means is the money. So the strong desire or the effective desire is to be coupled with the purchasing power. If I have money, it can be considered that I am having the purchasing power. So therefore, when this desire is strongly coupled with the purchasing power, then the demand exists in the market for any good. This is how we can understand what is a demand. Demand may be defined as the desire to possess a thing. So one should have a desire to possess a thing. So men may be having various needs. According to their needs, they want to procure products from the market. So one should have a desire to possess a thing. Secondly, the means of purchasing it. That means he should have a system or a means, something, that is money. So he should arrange money from some other means to procure it. That is what is called the means of purchasing it. And this means of purchasing must be coupled with the willingness to use the means for the purpose. So I should also have the wish of or willingness to use the means for the purpose. Nobody spends money unnecessarily. Everybody is cautious about spending money. So we spend money with utmost care, and in purchasing the product also we will take lot of care. We will do lot of survey. So that is what is called willingness to use the means for the purpose. So that means spending money with a willingness to procure the item for serving my purpose. That is, in other words, inclination to purchase. So what is my preparedness for the purchase of such products? It is called the third point. Also we have a curve here. You can see demand increases with the price fall. You can see here in this graph, as the price of a product falls, the demand in the market increases. How it increases? In three modes we can put it here. One is a customer who was unable to purchase the good will now enter the market and try to procure the good because its price has fallen down. The second mode is a customer who is habituated to using the other goods will now turn to this particular good of the same nature because of the price fall in this particular good. Thirdly, some customers who have already purchased the good when its price was high, now when its price falls down, they want to purchase it more in quantities. So in these three modes, the demand for a particular product in the market increases when its price falls. So this is not a common thing for all, please. For certain goods there will be a lot of demand for a very small percentage of price fall. For certain goods there will be a considerable, consistent, that means the demand will not be much, it is almost equal to the price fall. So let us go into such details. How are they? So in order to understand the demand in detail, we must know about a parameter, that is what is called the elasticity of demand. The elasticity of demand, it describes the degree of responsiveness of the demand for a good to a fall or rise in its price. Suppose a particular item or good is there, its price has fallen. So what is the response in the market? That means who will respond to the price fall? The customer in the market, the consumer who is utilizing the good. So what is this responsiveness towards the price fall? That is what is called the elasticity of demand. So it can also be put as a ratio of proportional variation in demand to proportional variation in price. That means what is the variation in demand or fluctuation in demand for a particular fluctuation or variation in price. So here I would like to say that we have commodities, that is basic necessaries. What are they? Pulses, rice, wheat, and also kerosene. All these are the basic necessities in our day-to-day life. So what happens to the demand when there is a fall in price? There will not be much demand. The fall in price, even though it is of high price, that is a basic necessity. People have to go to the market and procure them by spending money. And when there is fall in price also, people purchase it, but there will not be a huge demand that is existing in the market. So the proportional variation in demand is not there for a particular fall in price for the basic necessity. So like that we can understand this ratio, what is called elasticity. Let us go into the further details. When the demand is not responsive to price variation, the elasticity is less than 1. So the demand is not responding properly to the price variation. Even though there is a price fall, the demand is not improving. Then in such situation of the market, the elasticity of demand is less than 1. So this is possible with the basic necessities, just now I said. So the basic necessity is required, whatever is the price. When the price fall, the demand will not be abruptly increasing. That is an example is here the basic necessity. When the demand is equal in response to the variation in price, then the elasticity may be equal to unity. So when these conditions prevail in the market, so this is something more than the basic needs. What is that? A comfort I want to give to my day-to-day life, like I want to procure a room air conditioner or a refrigerator which gives comfort to me. So all these items of this sort come under this category, where the demand, the fluctuation in demand is almost equal to the fluctuation in the price. And thirdly, when the fluctuation in demand is more than the fluctuation in price, then the elasticity is greater than 1. So the best example here that can be quoted is in Indian market scenario, the cars are considered to be the luxurious items. So the cars, some time back only rich class used to purchase cars. Now even the middle class sect and just above the middle class, this sect also is able to purchase the cars. Why? That means it is available in various schemes to various sects of people. So that means if this is a luxurious item, but then for a very small price fall there will be a lot of demand, because all the people who are existing in the middle class sect and above that will now tend to go to the market and try to analyze the purchase of the particular product. So this is how the demand for such items will improve more than the price fluctuation. So this is all the items coming under this category can be considered as luxurious items. So this is how we can understand the demand and its effect. But demand depends upon so many factors. Some of them are type of goods. The type of good. What is the good? Is it serving the purpose of basic necessity, or is it a machinery which is required by certain set of customers in the market, or is it a non-consumable thing like a lubricating oil, or is it a luxurious item like a car or a motor vehicle of high cost, etc. So that is the type of, depending on the type of good, the demand exists. Then secondly we have the consumer's taste. So what the consumer is wanting, what is the style of understanding the product and purchasing it. So what is the behavior actually, what is the want actually in the market. So this taste or attitude of the customer is required to be examined in order to assess the correct demand for a particular product. The consumer's income. So what is the income category of the consumers? So in India we have rich class, middle class and poverty, below poverty line. So the income group, middle income group is the high potential group in India even today. So every manufacturer dreams of taking his product into this middle class sector, then only he will be succeeding in marketing the good. So the consumer's income also plays a vital role in creating a demand. That is his purchasing power. If many people are having the purchasing power, naturally the demand will be there more in the market. Then the price of other goods. What is the price of other goods? That means if there are goods existing in the market of the same nature, then what is the price of such goods? If their price is lower than the price of this good, then naturally people tend to switch over to that particular product. So that will decrease the demand. So the price of other goods also gives a particular parameter for assessing the demand. Then substitutes. That means there are goods in the market which are serving the same purpose as this present good in discussion now. Now what are the substitutes? What is their quality? What is their performance? All these things contribute for the creation of a demand for the present product. So if they have more quality than our product, if they have more performance characteristics than our product, then naturally the other goods will have more demand, the demand for our good will come down. So we should tend to create more quality and performance characteristics, technical characteristics in our good, so as to outsmart the other goods and create demand for our good. So the substitutes also play. This has to be observed. Then the general price level. The general price level. That means there are goods existing in the market of high price and very low price also. So the demand directly depends on the price. Usually goods of very high price in the market, when there is a fall in such price, the demand will be more for such goods. And the goods of very small price are available or within the reach of every customer, then there will not be much fluctuation of demand for a fall in its price. So goods of low price will not have much demand in the market, even though its price is falling down further. goods of high price will have high tendency towards the demand. This is how we can understand the dependency of demand on various factors. So we now study what is called the ability of an entrepreneur. Who is an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur is such a person who is having a strong desire to start his own business or to start his own industry and feed the people in the society. So he wants to act as an independent person. He doesn't want to act to the wills and wishes of others. So such a person is what is called an entrepreneur. Now when we see this here, the success of marketing is the ability of an entrepreneur to forecast the strength and character of demand. So an entrepreneur can successfully market his product in the market when he can forecast the strength and character of demand. Forecasting means assessing the future of the demand for the product which is proposed to be manufactured. So if he has good capability, excellent capacity of assessing the future demand of the product, then he is a successor in the marketing field. So the success of marketing is the ability of an entrepreneur to forecast the strength and character of demand. Thus market and demand survey bring out three variables from the market. So close examination of the market and close survey of demand gives us three variables from the market. Then what are they? They are the people with needs, that is population pattern. The other name is demographic variables. Who are the customers and what are their needs? Like customers are human beings. We have children, we have young people in the market, we have age old people, old age people in the market. So different types of age group, the sex. We have female customers, we have male customers and their attitudes. So people with needs, children, babies especially, newly born babies, they are having a need like baby food is required and baby oils are required and fancy items for babies are required. If old people are there in the market, they need some medication because in old days we usually get some ailments. So in order to come out of them we have to use medicines. So medicines are a must for old people. So who are the people and what are their needs? This is to be analyzed with utmost care. So this is what is called demography, that means study of population. See here I can quote the example. Johnson & Johnson way back in 1920s have introduced the baby items for the first time. They have marketed. What is the reason behind it? What is the story? So in the olden days the rate of mortality was more, that means death rates were more. In a particular year they have found that the mortality rate has come down, that means the death rates have come down. That means the survival rate is more, naturally babies will be available and their products can be marketed very easily. This is how they assessed the market and introduced the baby items for the first time. So that is the one. Then secondly, people with money to spend, that means their purchasing power. What is this is something which depends on the economical condition of the country. So what is the percentage of illiteracy, what is the percentage of poverty in a particular country? All these factors contribute to purchasing power. So according to a particular survey at national level, we have 23% people who are in poverty line. That means 77% people are having sufficient money to purchase the goods, at least to give comfort to their life. If not going to luxuries, they can at least bring some goods which can give comfort to them. So this is how we can analyze what is the purchasing power. The customer is existing in the market, but at the same time we should have money to purchase it. So many factors we have to consider before arriving at a particular point of assessing the purchasing power of people. Then people with willingness to spend money, that means the attitude of the customers in the market, their purchasing or buying behavior in the market. That is called psychographics. Psychographics is the study of behavior of customers in the market or their attitudes. So how is he purchasing the good? So for instance, here today the market is very dynamic, means it's not static, it is very dynamic. That means the lifestyle has become very fast. People are trying to procure clothes which are already in the stitched form. They don't have time to go to a particular place and get them stitched. So that means there are many manufacturers who are putting the clothes in the stitched form before the customers, as the lifestyle has become very fast. Similarly, two-wheelers, we are seeing two-wheelers every 6 months or 2 months, if I am not exaggerating, the same two-wheeler vehicle, motor vehicle or scooter, is appearing to us in some different mode. That means the customer has become monotonous with the same kind of product. So the new product is having the same characteristics, but it is put before the customer in a different fashion. So customer wants to see it in a different fashion. That is what is his attitude towards a particular product. So that is also to be considered, that is also to be closely observed. That is called people with willingness to spend money. That is the buying behavior of people in the market. So these are the three variables one can thoroughly get information by conducting a market and demand survey. Now we try to understand the basic things called what is a product, because as an entrepreneur in the market I have to first decide what should be my product. So first I have to understand what is a product. A product is an outcome of various processes that the raw material is subjected to. So when the raw material is subjected to various operations on it, it is transformed into a final product. It gets the final shape and size and a particular look, then it is called a product. That means for producing a product we need to subject the raw material to various processes. According to the processes, we need to have the equipment required to conduct such process, that is the machinery, the equipment, the handling equipment. So many things are required here, facilities. Similarly, men are required to conduct the process on it. So like that we can analyze from this basic definition. So it is the final stage of the item after the assembly of all the finished components. So if the product is an assembly of different components, when all such different components are assembled, and that final product is what is called our product. So this is how we can understand what is a product. Then what is production? It is a procedure to transform a set of input elements like men, materials, capital, machinery, information into a specified set of output elements like finished goods of proper quality and quantity. So it's a procedure to perform certain input elements, to transform certain input elements like men, material, machine, money and management, etc., to get the output elements like finished products of proper quality and quantity. This is what is called production. It is an organized activity of transformation of raw materials into useful products. So the transformation of raw materials into useful products is not possible unless the activity is totally organized with various inputs. So this is how we can understand what is production. Let us now discuss briefly about what are the types of production. Already this has been discussed in the previous sessions. Anyway, once again a rapid refreshing. One is job or unit production. Job or unit production. Here a specific job order is taken and it is manufactured as per the order and specifications, and it is delivered. A die design can be quoted as an example for this particular production, a die design. Similarly, mass or continuous production, that means uninterrupted production on mass basis. For example, bolts and nuts. a manufacturer of bolts and nuts will not go for a single job. His job is to continuously manufacture the bolts and nuts. For this, you may need to provide a permanent setup of machinery and other equipment, etc. Now the third is batch or quantity production. This just takes the intermediate stage of job or unit production and mass or continuous production. This particular unit, batch or quantity production unit, may take up even job orders, or also it may go for a particular mass production of a particular item. So that means there is flexibility in the setup here for this particular production unit. So this is how we can understand what are the various types of products. Then finally, productivity. What is productivity? So it is defined as the ratio between output and input. It is simply the ratio between output and input. What is this output? Output means the amount produced or the number of items produced. So what are the number of items produced in a particular period of time, like month, in a month, or per year, or whatever. What is input now? Input means the various resources employed. So for the production of such item, what are the inputs? The land and building, men, materials, money, machines, and a strong management, an effective management. All these form the inputs for the production of the proposed number of items. This is what is called productivity. But in its true sense, productivity means increasing the number of items to be produced with the same resources that are available. That means effective utilization of resources is required to increase the production rate. So with the available resources, how much maximum we can produce, that reflects what is called the productivity. So let us go into the details of productivity. Purpose to increase productivity. So the productivity increase will have its effect on a particular country's economical position. So if you take a country like USA, its productivity is something like 8 to 10 times more than the productivity of a country like India. That means the rate of production with the available resources was more in USA than in India. There are various reasons for this. Anyway, the purpose to increase productivity is for management. What is the purpose? For management, it gives the strength to sell more. The productivity, the activities which are taken up by the management to increase productivity may make them to sell more. To make good earnings, when you sell more, naturally you will get more profits and you may get good earnings. So therefore, the management, for the management, it makes them to go for good earnings. To clear the debts or loans. So as a nature, for running their business and industry, it is customary on their part to bring some loans and debt from other sources. Then they are to be cleared or repaid. So it gives them strength to clear the debts or loans. To stand better in the market. So this is very important here. So to stand better in the market means you may not be getting profit, but still if all the expenditure is met and you have not got a loss, then it gives a standing power in the market. You can stand in the market. That itself is a goodwill that you can get in the market. So today's market, which is so dynamic, standing in the market itself is a victory. So if you can stand for 1 year or 2 years, naturally the goodwill will be accrued in that 1 year or 2 years. You can think of procuring profits after that period. So that's how the productivity gives strength to stand better in the market for a particular industry. Then for workers, the productivity effect on workers. So they get more wages, because with the available resources we are able to produce more and sell them in the market. Naturally the wage packages or wage structures will be higher for workers. They get better working conditions. The working conditions are improved, sophistication of machinery can be done, and safety measures can be taken in accordance with the international standards sometimes. Therefore better working conditions can prevail in the industry. Then high standard of living. Their standard of living also can be improved, like they can procure more comfortable goods in the market which can give them comfort, and they can also enjoy luxurious items in the market. The lifestyle, the standard of lifestyle will be improved. Then job security and satisfaction. So once you improve in any organization, any worker feels satisfied with his work and his job is also a secured one. Then for customers, what is the benefit? So always they will get the product at a reduced price. So reduced price of the goods or articles is the advantage for customers when the productivity of any industry is increasing. This is how we can understand the effect of productivity. Then factors affecting productivity. Factors affecting national productivity, that means human resources, technology. Human resources, we have about more than 100 crores of people in our country. People who can work are at least 50% of that, 45 to 50% of that. So human resources is a very strong medium which can help increasing the productivity. And such people existing in a country, if they are educated, also they can perform well in the industry. Like in today's system, we are seeing computers and sophisticated machinery, computer numerical control machines. For operating them, the basic education is required for any individual. So if the government comes forward on the education lines and take measures in giving education to people, especially in such areas which are directly linked with productivity, then human resources is the best source. Next is technology. So technology, for any continuous production, continuous and proper productivity programs, technology is the prime concern. So the advancement of technology and its use in our system and standards of conditions in any organization, the type of machinery, all these things are directly linked with technology. This is how the factors affecting the national productivity can be considered. Then factors affecting productivity in manufacturing and services. In manufacturing concerns and in servicing concerns, how is the productivity affected? By product design. See, if by improved product design, if we can eliminate certain number of parts from the final assembly, that is a recommendation from a better product design. Then such all such eliminated parts, the material involved in them and the people required to support such processes, all these will come down. Then naturally the money spent on resources will be less, and then with the same available resources we will be able to produce more. So this is one kind of a factor, product design. So always research and development should take place in any organization for a better design of the product and to eliminate wastage, so that with the available resources only we will be able to develop more production. Then machinery and equipment. It is an obvious factor that any machinery which is modernized, sophisticated, automatic machine will naturally produce more than a common or conventional machine. Moreover, the strain on the operators, workers also will be reduced. So the technology can be induced in this area, and we can improve the quality of machinery and also other equipment, supporting equipment. Then we can improve the productivity. The skill and effectiveness of the worker. So the worker who is well trained and is having excellent skill will be able to do the work within the shortest possible time with more effectiveness than an illiterate person. So this is how one can understand the importance of this factor or its effect on productivity. The skill and effectiveness of the worker definitely improves the productivity. Then the production volume. So what are the volumes? Suppose if volume is to be doubled, then when it comes to the resources, what is required to be doubled or increased? The direct workers who are doing work on the machines is to be doubled or increased, and their supporting staff up to a certain extent, but not the main engineers and executives at the top level and at the medium level. All these people who are indirectly involved in the work need not be increased in number. So when you increase the production volume to certain extent only, we have to increase the persons involved in it and also the engineers involved in it, not all the people. So this is to be thoroughly examined, and the wastage there should be reduced to a larger extent. So this is how we can improve the productivity in the manufacturing and servicing organizations. Then we have to consider the product lifestyle. Any product will have its lifestyle. So what is it? It is a period of popular existence of the product. So any product will have certain stages. For introductory stage, then the next stage that is called growth, like that. We go into the details after a short while. So it is the period of popular existence of the period. The product life period is marked into 5 compartments. So what are the 5 compartments? They are the introduction, beginning of sales. For any product, the beginning of sales, there is a stage that is called introduction stage. Then next is the growth. So once the product clicks in the market, it will have a growth in the market. Sales rise at a faster rate. Then the third stage is maturity stage, where people try to understand the quality and the characteristics of the product. So once they understand it in the better manner, then that is called the maturity stage, where the sales zoom like anything. Then saturation. So they enjoyed the total what is that called performance, the quality or characteristics of the product. Then it is a point of saturation, stable sales will be there. Then after that there will be decline in the sales. Why? There are so many reasons for the such declination. What are they? The first thing is introduction of other items of the same nature in the market. The second is, if the same product is existing in the market, monotony, that means boredom. The customer will get bored to see the same item always. So these are the factors probably which are the root cause for the decline of the product sales. Then lastly, we have a curve here between sales and time. So the time here taken on x-axis, it can be days, it can be months, it can be years also. The sales in rupees, you are seeing the curve here, and this total life time of this product in the market is divided into 5 zones. The first zone is introduction. So in the introduction zone, the sales are not abruptly increasing, they are gradually increasing. So people are trying to watch it. There is not much inclination towards this product. That is the stage. Then the growth. Once people start using it, the message is conveyed to other customers who are in the market. Then naturally, if it clicks in the market, if it gets success in the market, then the growth, during the growth stage, the sales will rise. Then after that, we reach the stage of maturity. There the people enjoy the real characteristics, quality and performance of the particular product. Then finally after that they will reach the saturation zone. Saturation zone means it is the maximum, this is the point where the maximum sales occur. So there after that there is a decline in its sales. So every product will have to pass through these stages. Only thing is, the question here is, what is the time required? So the time, as I already told you, maybe days, maybe months, maybe years. For example, TV, when it was introduced for the first time way back in about 1970s in India, so this during the introduction stage the sales were very smaller. Maybe we can take 5 years, maybe the introduction stage. Then after that the growth, maybe another 5 or 6 years. Then after that the maturity. We are seeing the maturity. Actually we can say here now the stage of maturity, because people want to enjoy the real quality and the purpose of TV. It has become, if I am not exaggerating, the need of today's life system. So therefore it is in the stage of maturity, and probably in future we may see the saturation and decline of TVs also when they are substituted by other items. So this is how we can understand the product life cycle by this particular graph. So in today's class we have talked about the feasibility study and the requirements for the preparation of feasibility report, the market and demand survey, and in the next session we will go into the details of feasibility report.